The fluorescent lights of the emergency room buzzed softly above him, but all he could hear was the pounding of his own heart. Jake Miller, a single dad who had spent his whole life holding everything together with duct tape and hope, sat alone in the corner of the ER waiting room, his hands trembling, his eyes burning, and his mind begging for good news that refused to come. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, the only family he had left in the world, was behind those closed double doors fighting for her life after a sudden asthma attack spiraled out of control. He had always been strong. He had always been the guy who didn't break. But in that moment, with the cold vinyl chair beneath him and the weight of fear crushing his chest, Jake bowed his head into his hands and finally lost the battle he'd been fighting for years. He broke. Quietly. Completely. And alone. But then, someone sat down beside him. A woman he had never met. A woman whose presence felt calm in a place filled with panic. And when she spoke just one sentence, everything changed. Before we dive into this powerful story of kindness, healing, and unexpected connection, make sure you hit subscribe, like, and comment down below. It helps us grow and continue bringing you stories that touch the heart. This is your channel name, where real stories remind us that kindness still matters. Jake didn't look up at first. He didn't want anyone to see him, this grown man with calloused hands and tired eyes, falling apart like a child. He wiped his face, trying to pull himself together, but the tears kept slipping through his fingers. The woman beside him didn't say anything at first. She just sat with him, quietly, respectfully, like she understood something about pain that didn't need words. All Jake noticed at first was the scent of soft perfume and the rustle of a silk scarf. After a long moment, she finally spoke. Her voice was gentle, steady. "It's okay to be scared. It means you love her." Jake froze. Something inside him cracked open. He looked up and saw her for the first time, a woman in her late 60s, elegant but warm, with silver hair pinned neatly and a face that carried both strength and sorrow. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered, embarrassed. I didn't mean to lose it." "You didn't lose anything," she replied kindly. "You're a father." Her words hit him harder than he expected. His throat tightened again. "My little girl, she's all I have." The woman nodded as if she understood that more deeply than anyone else ever had. "I know what it's like to love only one person more than anything in the world." Jake didn't know who she was, but her tone carried the weight of someone who knew grief intimately. After a moment of silence, she asked softly, "What's her name?" "Lily," he said. "She's 8. She's the bravest kid I know." The woman smiled warmly. "A beautiful name." She paused. "My husband used to bring me lilies every Sunday." He said they reminded him of hope. Jake managed a small laugh. "I could use a little hope right now." "That's why I sat beside you," she said simply. "Everyone deserves hope." Jake didn't know it yet, but this woman, this stranger, was not just any passerby. She was Eleanor Hayes, the widow of one of the richest businessmen in the state. A woman whose face had once appeared on magazine covers. A woman who could have been anywhere in the world, but instead, chose to sit quietly beside a broken single father in an ER waiting room. But Jake didn't recognize her. And she didn't tell him who she was. To her, kindness wasn't a performance. It was a responsibility. She looked at him with eyes that had known decades of love, loss, and rebuilding. "Tell me about Lily," she said softly. Jake exhaled, grateful for the chance to think about something other than the worst-case scenario. "She loves drawing," he said. "And animals. And she makes up these silly jokes that don't make sense but somehow make you laugh anyway. She's sunshine, you know? She's my reason for everything." Eleanor smiled gently. "She sounds wonderful." Jake nodded, staring at the double doors again. His voice dropped. "I promised her everything would be okay. I promised her we'd get through anything. But right now, I don't know." Eleanor placed a hand over his shaking one. "You're here. You brought her in. You're doing everything you can. That's what being a good parent looks like." Jake swallowed hard. He didn't feel like a good parent. He felt helpless. Minutes passed. Doctors rushed by. Phones rang. A child cried somewhere down the hall. Jake's leg bounced anxiously, his mind racing with fear. Seeing this, Eleanor gently asked, "When's the last time you ate?" Jake shrugged. "Yesterday, I think." "Doesn't matter." "It matters," she replied softly. "You can't take care of her if you collapse, too." Before he could argue, she stood up and walked over to the vending machines. A few minutes later, she returned with a bottle of water, a granola bar, and a warm blanket one of the nurses had given her when she asked. "Here," she said. "Start with this." Jake hesitated. "You didn't have to." "I know," she cut in kindly. "But I wanted to." Something about her tone, firm yet compassionate, reminded him of the mother he lost long ago. Someone who cared without needing a reason. As they sat together, Eleanor opened up, bit by bit. She told him her husband had died 2 years earlier after a long battle with cancer. She told him she often came to hospitals not because she had appointments, but because she found comfort being near places where people fought for life and love. After William passed, she said, the house felt too big. Too quiet. "I started coming here sometimes. It reminds me that love still matters somewhere." Jake listened, surprised at how two strangers' stories could fit together like puzzle pieces. He wasn't good at talking about his feelings, but Eleanor made it easy. She made it safe. Hours passed. Nurses updated him occasionally. Lily was stable, but undergoing further treatment. Each update eased a bit of the tension in his chest, but the fear still lingered like a shadow. At one point, Jake looked at Eleanor and whispered, "Why are you being so kind to me?" Her answer came with a soft smile. "Because someone once sat beside me when I was breaking. And they stayed until I wasn't alone anymore. Kindness is meant to be passed on." Jake felt something warm and unfamiliar rise in his chest, gratitude so deep he didn't know how to hold it. Around dawn, a doctor finally approached them with a relieved smile. "Mr. Miller? Lily is awake. She's asking for you." Jake exhaled a breath he felt he'd been holding for years. He stood quickly, but before following the doctor, he turned to Eleanor. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. "I don't know how to repay you." "You already have," she said softly. "You reminded me that love is still alive in this world." Jake hesitated. "Will I see you again?" Eleanor touched his arm gently. "Of course. But for now, go be with your daughter." He nodded and followed the doctor through the doors. What he didn't notice, what he couldn't have known, was that Eleanor stayed in the waiting room long after he left, smiling through tears of relief for a child she had never met. When Jake returned hours later with Lily, still weak but smiling, Eleanor was gone. Only the blanket and empty water bottle remained beside the seat where she had been. But her kindness stayed with him like a warm echo in his heart. Weeks later, Jake discovered who she really was: Eleanor Hayes, the billionaire widow known for her massive charitable donations. But to him, she would never be a headline or a name tied to wealth. She would always be the woman who sat beside a broken father and held his hope together when he couldn't. Sometimes the richest people in the world are the ones who give the most important thing: kindness. And sometimes the smallest act, even just sitting beside someone and saying one gentle thing, can save a life. So let this story be your reminder today: kindness costs nothing, but means everything. And when you pass it on, you are part of something bigger, something powerful, something that keeps the world from falling apart. Spread it. Share it. Live it. Because someone out there needs the kindness only you can give.